Hey, and welcome to the Board Game Chair. I'm Trev, and this is my co-host Monique, and this is a PAX Games podcast. This week, what we're going to do for our video, like our usual weekly video that we do, we're going to actually give you this episode of the Board Game Chair as it, for one reason only. It's time to do a part 2 to a video from before. And what video is that, Monique?
It's been 6 months?
No, I think we did it in January. Maybe it has been 6 months basically.
It's June.
Oh my word, it's June. Anyway, what video is it?
Our video on making a board game. We have progressed, finally.
We have progressed. Recently, we kind of made the video and started making the game and kind of just been like...
I honestly just was tired of it.
I was so tired. Because what happened was we made the video and then immediately afterwards, for the next couple nights, we worked on it and we played and we played and we played and we kind of got nowhere.
So if you want some more context, I'd go watch that. But we kind of took a hard right with making our game.
Yeah. Because what happened is we were playing it one night and we played it for an hour. And then what happened?
We realized that it just wasn't working. We wanted it to have this mechanism of dice drafting and building and all this other stuff, and it just was not meshing together. And we were like, okay, time to dumb it down.
So we literally sat down and we decided, you know what? After a couple months, we're like, let's try this again.
Yeah.
Fresh eyes. And we started just throwing everything at the wall, which sounds so ridiculous. But basically, we just laid on our couch and we basically looked at each other and just basically were like, okay, I'm going to give you a theme and you're going to tell me a board game. And then we do the opposite. And we just kept going back and forth.
Where we'd make it up.
Yeah, we just make up.
So for example, I'd say
give me a theme.
I don't know.
Quick.
Jungle.
And I'd be like, okay, you are in the jungle with your best friends and you are trying to climb a tree, but to climb to each branch you have to roll and beat a certain thing.
So we'd come up with concepts of just to see if a theme would help us achieve,
which it kind of did.
It got our minds rolling.
Yeah,
I feel like we learned a lot about brainstorming.
It's true. And it helps that in our college class we talked about brainstorming that week. Literally.
Which is mostly why we pulled out the game.
Yes, actually. Anyway, so what happened was eventually I got this idea because I wanted to continue using dice drafting. And for those that don't know what that means, basically what's going to happen is you roll a bunch of dice and then you go around the table and each of you guys take a dice. And you go all the way around and then you go around and around. And I wanted to do that somehow because I liked it. But I also wanted to use it in context of what the dice you draft is, how much of a resource you get, right?
Yeah.
And so I just couldn't figure out what to do with that or what happened, right? That's what we kind of came up with. And then it hit me. I literally stood up on the couch and I was like, I've done it. I've thought of it.
It was pretty funny.
And basically what it is you are drafting dice to fulfill orders of some type.
For right now, it's restaurant theme is the way we're thinking about it. Probably not going to go that route. Who knows? But it just gives cohesiveness to our continual brainstorming.
Sense. Yeah. Because what happens is so each player has a board and it has 6 resources of some types. And I always say for the example of you have your fry station and your grill where you make burgers, and then you have a place to make hot dogs, and then you have a place to make, I don't know, Mexican food. And then you have a place to make...
But they're all labeled alphabet, A, B, C,
F.
D, E, and F.
Yeah.
And so there's 1, 2, 3, 4... 6 sections on the board of different things that you could have. Resources.
And then basically how the game kind of plays out is that you take every, your shift. You have a 3-hour shift per se. And there's 3 hours. And the first hour, you roll the first hour set of dice. And basically what it is, it's 4 dice per person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you roll them all, and there's numbers 1 through 3. And then you go around the table, and you guys each take one, placing it in a different resource. So I made 3 hot dogs this hour, or, whatever.
3
Three of something.
They're all,
Three
the cards
A.
are labeled A, B, C, D, E, F.
Yeah.
And so each card has a different combination of who's it's, what's it's, I don't know. And you place your die depending on which cards are out. So there's 4 cards out at a time.
Mm-hmm. And then after you do the drafting phase, it's the fulfilling phase. And you fulfill as many orders as you can going back and forth.
Until you run out of resources.
Or you just plain can't do it.
Yeah.
And so what we decided is that whatever resources you have will roll over into the next one. So it could be good for you to keep some to be able to get some better cards next time.
Yeah.
So then you take the second hour dice and you roll them. And then you go through and you draft. And then with your first and second hour dice on your board, you fulfill the next orders that you can, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the catch. Your dice can only roll over one time. So all the dice that you rolled that first time, you have to remove now because they spoiled or they got rotten or you can't use them now for whatever reason. And then you do one more round. You do 3 and then you re-roll those ones and then you do it again. And that's the first day and you play a couple days or whatever. Go for it.
But if this sounds a bit confusing, it probably is.
I did a pretty good job, I would say. Come on, guys.
I don't know. I think it's
That
more
bad?
cohesive as you play it. It makes
Yeah.
more sense just because it is out of our brains. I don't know.
Out of our butts.
Literally.
But what'd you think? So this is the whole point. So now we have kind of like a little bit of a play testing phase where we just play. There was no points, no nothing. What'd you think?
I really like the idea of the game. I'm excited to see where it goes. I think there's a lot more that needs to be added. I think we talked about that.
But let's talk about like when we added in points and how that went first.
Go on.
But no, I was just going to say that I liked the game as it was, but there was no drive, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so we kind of started to be like, okay, how do we add points, right? And it was like, okay, do we add points based upon how many different things, like how many numbers of things? But we realized soon that like one, like for example, one thing of one resource and then 2 of another is not the same of getting 3 of one resource. Because getting 3 of one resource is harder than getting 2 of one and 1 of another. And so we had to like realize, we had started trying to find that balance and it made it super hard, don't you agree?
Yeah. It took us quite, I think we're still in the process of
Figuring out
discovering
the point. Oh, so weird.
how points correlate with each of the different cards and perfecting them. I think that's going to take us quite a while to finally perfect to a point where
Even how many, how many of each type of card is in the
everything with the cards in general.
It's like, to be honest, like looking at like Stonemaier with Wingspan and stuff, how'd they do it?
No idea.
Like, I'm dying, and I'm not actually dying, but it's hard. Like, we need to give more credit to people that design games. Like, that, it is so hard to figure out how many cards to be in a deck. Like, how did Root decide how many cards? You know what I mean?
I have no idea.
That, good for them.
And then each different faction.
Yeah. Oh, it is hard.
I think that's one of the biggest things I've gotten out of this is just realizing how difficult it is to actually come up with a mechanism that will work with another board game mechanism.
It's true.
Something that will mesh together well, because there's been some games we played where the mechanisms don't mesh as well. And you can tell. So that's something that's super important to me as we're making this, is just like making sure that everything feels very polished and very done, that all the rules make sense and there's no loopholes that you can like find and
exploit.
Yes.
So now let's get into the funness. So we talked about what we've done, right?
Yeah.
Now let's talk about where we want to be.
Published.
Okay, but what's like the next thing we want to add? Like, what's our ideas? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what do you got?
So the only one I can remember right now is the spoil die. Spoiling food. We don't really know.
We don't know what to call it because there's no
just the
real
spoil
theme.
die.
It's the spoil die.
But basically, my idea for this is that every time it's like one die that somehow gets put in with a deck of cards, a different deck of cards.
Which I'll explain in just a minute.
He'll explain that. but it somehow gets put into the mix of die being rolled, and it's the one that does not carry over. And so you have to play that one that turn, which I think would be really fun and add an extra layer of depth to the game.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something we want to try.
Yeah. The other thing also, so the deck of cards she's talking about, right? This deck is basically what's going to give the game a little bit of spice, per se.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm calling it the upgrade deck for now. I don't know another word or really term to call it. But basically what it's going to do is the money you earn from selling stuff, whatever the heck it is. Again, we don't know.
From the cards that you have resources from the die.
Yes. From earning money that you can buy upgrades. And these upgrades you can place onto your player board into spots. So, like,
or they affect the dice.
Or they affect the dice, but they're going to take up a location so that you can't later on. So, like, for an example, like some basic ones we were thinking of is like, oh, you get +1 in hour 3 of this certain type of resource or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or +1 in this certain hour. You know what I mean? There's like kind of those things that will carry over from day to day, but they're not broken, but they help the game.
Yeah.
And they make it worth it to buy. And basically, like we were talking about, like maybe like the spoil dice is something you can buy to put in, but the spoil die will have like will have a 4 on it.
Oh yeah, that's something that we forgot to mention is that the numbers on the die only go up to 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you're rolling, you can't get a 6 of this
one type.
Yeah. And so I really liked that aspect of,
because it's hard.
Because it's hard to get what you want.
What you want. It's true.
And then allocate it correctly to which cards are going to come up, which is going to change every round.
It's true. What were other things that we were talking about doing?
I think those? That was that.
Just the upgrade deck. Yeah, it's just like really, that's like the main. But this is why we like making these kind of videos, is because, to be honest, my idea for this game really just came from one of the comments in the last video.
Really?
Like, I remember reading it and be like, oh, I want to try doing this. And it started my brain to start thinking about it more. And that's why I brought it out to start talking to you about it more. It was because of that comment, because I was so excited to just try that idea. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so we want you guys to leave down below. Sorry. Storage shelf. But what things can we add? Like, what things can we put in? If you understand what we're talking about, because I know it's going to sound really confusing. But what things can we add into maybe the upgrade deck or something like that would help us? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're looking out for those ideas, and like, yeah, we're really excited about it.
We're open-minded.
Yeah, we're open-minded. And like, if you're like, Trevor, Monique, you guys are idiots. This game is this, and you are just remaking it. Let us know, because that would really make me really sad, but I would like to know.
It's true.
Anything else to say?
No, that's
the game so far.
That's the game.
Oh, also themes.
Oh yeah.
Down below, please.
Ideas, creative ideas, because like everything that I think of is like the same.
The same thing, but slightly different.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching and just listening in, and watching it, hopefully, this podcast episode. And again, if you have any ideas, leave it down below. You guys are awesome. Remember to subscribe. Because why?
Because a giveaway, 1,000 subscribers.
Bingo,
We'll be there.
Bingo, bongo, be there. Okay, we'll see you guys next time. Have a good day. Bye.